So Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 are getting a remake in the same year? Wait, Silent Hill 2 is also getting one? And Glenn Schofield's horror game is coming out next month? Wow, I've got my work cut out for me, don't I? This video is sponsored by the Coldest Water. Drinking more water is something a lot of us should be doing, and something even I still struggle with from time to time. Looking at a big jug of water can be pretty intimidating to me, and of course to others, so I'm really happy to show off the Coldest 21-ounce sports bottle. It's convenient, small, and extremely portable. You can stick it in your bag when you go to work, you can take it to the gym, or you can just twirl it around your fingers if you're so inclined. I mean, are you still drinking out of those plastic cups at the office? Well, no more. This bottle can get you through your entire work shift, and then keep your drink cold for up to 36 hours or more. And if you have a hot drink like coffee, you can keep that warm for up to 12 hours. I'm happy to say that your ice is right at home in this insulated bottle. One thing I really enjoy about this kind of bottle is this is one of the few bottles like this that has a built-in straw, so it has ease of access and you don't spill your drink all over yourself when you're in your vehicle. Check the link in the description and use our code CWILD for 10% off your first order so you can get one too. So we've got quite a few horror games coming out in the next 3 months. 3 are remakes and 1 is brand new. As you know, I'm quite a sucker for the Capcom remakes, and speaking honestly, I could never really get past the tank controls of the original Resident Evil games. I still enjoy them, but for me, they're just really frustrating to play. I think it's really cool, the idea of taking the original games and improving upon them with a new perspective, but keeping the spirit of the original alive. I know there's criticisms here and there of Resident Evil 2, for example, like the A and B storylines didn't really have any connection at all, because in the original games, like, you had to pick and choose, like, what weapons and what resources you got, because in the next playthrough on the A and B storyline, that resource or that weapon wouldn't be there, so you had to leave stuff for the other character. It's kind of like how Hard Rain in Left 4 Dead 2 has its system where you do the campaign and you have to strategically pick your resources because you have to come back and those resources won't be there the next time you come by. Speaking honestly, Resident Evil 2 Remake was actually my favorite game of 2019, which is incredibly shocking because I'm a huge Devil May Cry fan, as a lot of you probably know, and both games came out in the same year. But we're moving on to the Resident Evil 4 Remake. I still think the original Resident Evil 4 plays pretty well for its age, and while I don't necessarily think it needed a ground-up remake, my skepticism was quickly silenced after watching the gameplay footage and hearing the one-liners and watching Leon literally block a chainsaw with his knife, and that's probably the most RE4 Leon thing I can think of, period. So I have high hopes for it, but I'll just have to wait and see when it comes out next year if it's worth the play. I'll probably still buy it just because I'm a sucker for Resident Evil, and I've bought pretty much every Resident Evil game that's come out in the last few years. The only ones I haven't touched are that Resistance multiplayer game that got abandoned. Probably not going to touch Reverse either because the multiplayer Resident Evil games have never really been any good. I mean, I tried Operation Raccoon City back in the day, and it was just, the characters were cool looking, but it just was not fun to play. It was just, the difficulty was terrible. Anyway, I can already tell they're probably going to keep the special outfits upon game completion, because looking back at Resident Evil 2 Remake and then the other games, and just seeing that they also have some bonus outfits if you pre-order the deluxe edition, I'm not really interested in the bonus outfits for this one, just because they look kind of strange, but to each their own. I mean, I thought the detective noir-looking outfit for Resident Evil 2 was pretty cool because it kind of reminded me of Sebastian's outfit from The Evil Within. So I'm pretty sure they're going to have, like, RE2 Remake Leon's outfit as an unlockable like you see on screen with the original Resident Evil 4, if they're going to keep things as close to the original as possible in terms of that mechanic. And honestly, since we have all this established lore that happened after RE4 came out, I hope we see some sort of reference or appearance of the Duke from Village, as it's hinted that the merchant from RE4 has some sort of relationship to him. Because during the announcement livestream for the Shadows of Rose DLC and talking about the RE4 remake more, we had the Duke actually commentating on this stuff, and some of his dialogue hinted at some sort of connection, but whether or not that actually happens, we'll just have to wait and see. Now we're moving on to the other remake that I'm maybe a little more excited for than Resident Evil 4, but as a lot of you know, I'm a huge fan of Dead Space. It's my all-time favorite horror game and one of the more popular games that I've actually streamed on the channel. I've done pretty much every game in the series on the channel, save for the Xbox-only expansion Dead Space 2 Severed, the mobile game, and that tie-in game to Dead Space 2. In fact, one of the very first Let's Plays that I did on Coyote Wild were of the original Dead Space on a New Game Plus after I'd beaten it for the first time. And one of the more popular videos that I have is actually a credit glitch where you could duplicate credits and basically get unlimited credits. Of course, I never actually finished that Let's Play and just opted to stream it years later, and it was honestly a better experience for me and for the audience. And speaking honestly, in terms of this whole situation, I'm still pretty miffed about the closure of Visceral Games years later, because I got pretty volatile in my Let's Rant the day that happened, but looking at the new remake of Dead Space 1, from what I've seen from the Motive team, they seem to really be respecting the original identity of the game, but improving upon it in a lot of ways. For example, the zero-gravity sections of the original Dead Space were pretty awful, and that's honestly an understatement, and seeing them implement the Dead Space 2 and 3 system is definitely a welcome improvement. And seeing how there's new areas of the Ishimura that I can explore with this system, it just feels a lot better. And I know a lot of people are skeptical of this remake, but to be honest, I'm glad that it's getting an overhaul for the modern console and PC era, because while the console versions of the original Dead Space 1 are stable and playable, the PC version of the game, on the other hand, has a number of issues that arise when it's running at a high FPS. This also happens in Dead Space 2 as well, but Dead Space 1 is infamous for the physics just completely breaking and some events not playing properly if you have it set to anything other than 30 frames per second. This is some footage that I shot to get some gameplay stock footage for this video, and I encountered 3 bugs that I've never seen before in this game.
Quarantine lifted.
The only one of these that I can explain is that the Guardian has an instant kill attack if you get within a certain radius, but since I was blasted towards it and on the ground, it did the kill move, but it didn't play the animation properly, so it just killed me and reset the game. The zero-gravity death, I'm honestly not sure what happened there. I think I just got stuck because of the high FPS, and it was just the game's way of preventing a soft lock, so it just killed me right then and there, but I have no idea what happened there. If any of you have any idea, just let me know in the comment section. It could have just been a fluke. One thing that really gets me excited for this remake is that they're accounting for all the expanded lore of the original game and its sequels, so the story ties together a lot better. For example, Dead Space Downfall, the animated film, and Dead Space Extraction, the rail shooter for the Wii, they take place at the same time, but there's a lot of inconsistencies between the two. But you do see some crossover, like Vincent from Downfall capturing Gabe Weller and McNeil when they get on the Ishimura, but there really isn't too much crossover other than that. I also hope we get some explanation as to why Norton from Dead Space 3 has the insignia of the USM Valor on his armor, but it's never really mentioned or hinted at that he was on the Valor, and while it could just be a generic EarthGov logo, it's literally the same exact insignia from the first game. What I'm really hoping for is that after this remake releases, that it hints to maybe a continuation of the series, and maybe we get some more games in the Dead Space franchise, in some shape or form. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but, you know, if it's financially successful, EA can really do whatever the hell they want. So, looking at another game that's coming out soon, I'm really excited for the Callisto Protocol. Glenn Schofield really brought all of his cards to the table for this one, and the gore is just insane. When I first played Dead Space, I thought the gore was pretty intense, but after so many deaths in-game, you can start to see a pattern on how the dismemberment system works, especially for Isaac. In the Callisto protocol, it looks like they're taking the gory death system and cranking it up to 11. It really truly feels like a proper spiritual successor to Dead Space in all the right ways. It's definitely checked all the boxes for me, and honestly, I don't care about the two games competing. I'm not a close-minded fanboy, so I can enjoy both. Lastly, Silent Hill 2 is getting a remake next year as well. I'll be honest with all of you, I never really played the original Silent Hill 2, but I watched Vinesauce play through the whole thing, and I really loved the soundtrack, the location, really just the atmosphere of Silent Hill. I was a really big fan of PT, and I was super excited for that game to come out because I'm a big horror game fan, but of course we never got to see PT come out because of Konami. I mean, I've been in the VR chat version of it a few times, the PT VR chat, and also the Silent Hill 2 port to VR chat, but I'm skeptical of Konami because of their past actions regarding PT and Kojima, but I'm trying to remain positive because there's just a lot of games coming out soon that I really want to try, and hopefully they've learned their lessons from the Metal Gear Survive days and the pachinko machines, because the fact that they're actually making games again is a good sign. But, you know, forgive but don't forget. But really, that's all I've got to say on these games. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on them, and I'll see you all in the next one.